Ladies and gentlemen, a very beautiful, cool, or warm welcome to each and every one of you. I need proof of life, so a round of applause, please. So I know you are here, I know you are ready. It is an absolute honor to be here as your mistress of ceremonies. My name is Anita Erskine, and this here is the Ishmael Yamson and Associates Business Roundtable 2026. And as you've seen around everywhere with a theme, Unlocking the Next Quarter Century. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, our celebrated partners, since its inception, in 2014, Ishmael Yamson and Associates Business Roundtable has become an important platform, of course, for candid dialogue, for bold thinking, for networking, for pushing, and ultimately for creating some of the most outstanding practical ideas, not for Ghana yesterday or today, but for the Ghana and by extension, for the Africa of tomorrow. And so today's conversations, we will go through certain critical pillars and of course, focusing on digital infrastructure, trade and integration, and so much more. My job here is to make sure that we keep the conversations moving, but also so that I encourage you to network, particularly during the breaks. And that is why you may see somebody sitting next to you that you've been sending hundreds of emails to, they haven't responded, but thankfully today, you will lock them up in this room and say, you and I will sign that deal. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for making time to join us today. To officially open our esteemed gathering and of course set the tone for the entire day, it gives me great pleasure to bring to the podium the CEO and President of Ishmael Yamson and Associates. Please warmly welcome Mr. Ishmael Yamson Jr.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Ministers of State, representatives from the Presidency, celebrated partners, captains of industry, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Welcome to Accra. Welcome to the Business Roundtable 2026. Since its inception, the IY&A Business Roundtable has served as a crucible for corporate thought, leadership, gathering to dissect market trends, navigate volatility, and share operational strategies. But BRT 2026 marks a definitive break from our history. We are convening today at an unprecedented scale. For the first time, our in-person attendance is estimated to surpass 400 participants, with some of the continent's most influential leaders in this room, joined by a global audience of television and digital viewers as well. To our speakers, thank you for bringing your battle-tested intellect to challenge the status quo. To every participant who has stepped out of their operational silo to be here, your presence signals your readiness to architect the future, not merely to inherit it. To our sponsors, and in particular our two largest partners this year, Huawei and Goldfields, your commitment goes far beyond financial support. It is a resounding vote of confidence in the sovereign future of this continent. Thank you. For decades, gatherings like this commenced with the comforting Africa Rising narrative. We celebrated our potential, our 30% of the world's critical minerals, our 60% of uncultivated arable land. But potential is merely a polite word for what we have not yet achieved. It's true. Potential without aggressive, structured execution is systemic failure. We command 30% of the world's resources, yet we account for a mere 3% of global trade. That is not potential. That is an indictment of our operational strategy. Under President Mahama's leadership, a historic resolution was recently secured, formally recognizing the transatlantic slave trade as the worst crime against humanity and acknowledging the darkest chapter of our history, in which the violent extraction of our human capital built the economic foundations of the global north. But as we sit in this room, well, I'm standing, but for the rest of you, we must recognize that while the extraction of our people has ended, the extraction of our wealth never stopped, it merely evolved. The era of defensive reactive corporate operator, who manages a company merely to survive the next quarter, is definitely over. The next 25 years belong entirely to the corporate statesman, the leader who ensures our future is defined not by what is extracted from us, but by what we retain. To achieve this, we must shift the macroeconomic illusions that have governed our boardrooms for a century. We must stop celebrating GDP. In the African context, GDP is merely a measure of extraction. When a foreign conglomerate extracts lithium from our soil and repatriates the dividends offshore, our GDP rises and we celebrate. But it creates zero employment in our economies. The gap between our GDP, what is taken from our borders, and our gross national product, which actually accrues to our citizens, and our sovereign balance sheets, is the literal measurement of our modern economic exploitation. We must enter the post-GDP era, anchoring our success on retained GNP and a fiercely defended positive balance of payments. MTN Ghana's record-breaking 2025 performance proves that when world-class digital infrastructure is paired with relentless execution, African operators can achieve unprecedented profitability. That performance must become the continental baseline, not the exception. Africa produces more than enough food to feed itself. Yet fractured supply chains produce catastrophic 40% post-harvest losses. We let our wealth rot in fields, forcing this continent to spend $100 billion annually on food imports. We are exporting our wealth and importing inflation. We must deploy the capital in this room to finance sovereign supply chains, eliminate those losses, and transform that trade deficit into a powerful job creation export surplus. Reversing these deficits requires us to weaponize our scale through AFCFTA, and we have a representative here today. Treaties do not build supply chains. The true mechanism for capturing the wealth of a borderless billion in Africa is a Pan-African joint venture. I challenge the CEOs in this room, find your peers across the borders, pool balance sheets, and build continental enterprises capable of outcompeting legacy global firms. For Africa, ESG can no longer be a defensive reporting burden imported from the West. We are bearing the catastrophic brunt of centuries of environmental damage, and this is where I realize that I'm not as young as I used to be. Without these, I'm blind. Of environmental damage perpetrated by the industrial global north. We cannot blindly chase growth at the risk of adding to that destruction, but neither can we accept metrics designed to stifle our industrialization. We must architect our own sovereign ESG frameworks, one that gives indigenously owned businesses a strategic advantage while placing a definitive financial burden on non-African entities to fund local research and mitigate the climate damage that we are actively suffering. We will not fit into foreign compliance metrics. We will define the standard that protects our long-term survival. Honorable ministers, distinguished guests, This level of sovereign execution requires a unique caliber of leadership. The global economy has entered an era of perma-crisis. While Western boardrooms paralyze in the face of volatility, the African C-suite must recognize that volatility is our Thursday. We eat it for breakfast. We possess battle-tested DNA in crisis management, but this advantage must be institutionalized. By 2050, we will have a workforce of over 1.6 billion young people. We cannot rely on overburdened state systems to produce the ethical, highly skilled leaders required to run the continental enterprises we are building today. The corporate sector must take absolute ownership of talent creation. It is with this urgent mandate in mind that I am proud to formally announce the launch of the Ishmael Yamson Foundation. The foundation is our dedicated vehicle for generational strategy and execution. Through structured incubation and rigorous strategic training, it will equip the brilliant young minds who will scale our agri-tech solutions, write our sovereign AI algorithms, and govern our cross-border institutions. These are the ecosystem builders of tomorrow. The foundation has taken the first steps to delivering on this mandate by sponsoring the attendance of 100 delegates today. My thanks to our sponsors for making that possible. As we launch this vital initiative today, I lay down a direct challenge to our indigenously owned businesses. Huawei and Goldfields have demonstrated profound belief in our vision. It is now imperative that African-owned enterprises follow their bold example. We must be primary financiers of our own future. We stand at the precipice of the next quarter century. The rules of the global economy are being rewritten. Let me be clear. The Business Roundtable is not simply a networking event. It's a corporate war room for continental sovereignty. Over the next few hours, step out of your corporate and national silos, syndicate the capital for our plan, for our Pan-African joint ventures, structure the sovereign supply chains that will break the commodity trap once and for all. The capital is in this room. The political will is at your tables. The demographic is waiting. It's time to measure the truth. It's time to execute. Welcome to Business Roundtable 2026. Thank you.